Hey everyone, welcome on to Branded. This is the podcast that takes you behind the scenes and beyond the brand. Today we're talking about the lifespan of your content. It is not a single use, it is way more valuable than that. So, are you using it in the capacity that it really can be used for? Because it does not have a single use lifespan. The content you create, especially if it's high value, if it answers a question that your ideal client is always asking, that is evergreen content. That is valuable content. Those are things that should be included in your marketing mix immediately because they answer questions that are being asked again and again and again. And it will constantly point people back to who you are, what you do, and what kind of services and products you offer. So I was reading, right now the book that I'm reading is called Masterful Marketing. It's kind of a tongue twister, I guess. Say it 5 times fast. Great book. It's very no fluff, to the point, gives you fantastic scenarios that are really super relatable. And I'm loving the read, and I'm getting so many golden nuggets out of this content, the book itself, right? And there was this metaphor inside of the book that helped me to revisit the conversation of repurposing your content. So this is something that you guys hear me talk about all the time. It's something I'm passionate about because it's something I do, and it's something I help my clients do too. So I am always repurposing content and really utilizing the lifespan of a single message to its absolute fullest. For example, these podcast episodes. I record this episode and I turn this into 2 emails, roughly 3 to 5 social media posts, 2 or 3 days worth of story slides. There's 10 plus pieces of content out of this one conversation that I'm having with you. And that's how I'm creating a lifespan of content, of evergreen content, of valuable information. And I'm letting it really expand and become something and not just be this one and done idea that I look back and I'm like, damn, that was such a good topic. Why did it have no engagement? Probably because you made it single use. You put it out there once, people just didn't happen to see it, and then you never talked about it again. Don't do that. So in today's episode, we're going to dive into the lifespan of your content, and I want to start this off with this metaphor that I read inside of Masterful Marketing. They were talking about Thanksgiving leftovers. As you're hearing this episode, we're about a month or so out from Thanksgiving, if that's a holiday that you celebrate. So you can probably relate to this metaphor regardless if you celebrate the holiday or not. The metaphor was eat the leftovers, right? When you spend all day long, you go to the best grocery stores, you buy the best product, you spend all fucking day in the kitchen, all day. You're cooking, and then you have this absolutely gorgeous meal in front of you. You grab your portion, you eat, you're satisfied. Everybody else that's there, they have their portions, they eat, they're satisfied, but there's so much food left over. Always, right? There's always so much food left over when it comes to these kinds of holidays that are really around food and having these big feasts, right? What if you just threw out all the leftovers? You didn't have sandwiches for a couple days after. You didn't make something into a stew. You didn't make a rice dish. You didn't make a soup. You just threw it all in the garbage after spending all of that time, money, energy to creating this beautiful thing. And then you throw it in the trash. This is what you're doing when you create single-use content. Now, you may not feel like this is what you're doing. And the only way that you'll kind of not feel like this is what you're doing is if you're creating content that is sort of being created for the purpose of just posting. Now, I'm not throwing any judgment. I did this for probably almost a year where I was putting out content for the sake of putting out content, for the sake of, I've got to post every single day. I've got to post before, 10 a.m. Like I was putting myself in this box of what I should be doing when it came to content creation. And instead of creating high value content that educates, answers the question, really provides a solution for the people that are viewing my content, until I started doing that, all I was creating was single use content. And it was fucking exhausting. I think you know what I mean. Single use content is exhausting because all you're doing is just constantly create, and then there's no foundation. I mean, it's literally like dollar bill, dollar bill, dollar bill. Like, what are we doing? Let's get more intentional with how we create our content and in turn, utilize the power of how incredible that content really is and allow it to have a lifespan. When you create your content, promptly forget about it, never talk about it again, these are ideas that get lost. These are ideas that never get the chance to be flushed out and expanded upon. There are so many posts that I can look back at from 3-ish years ago where I was just on the cusp of saying something meaningful. I was just on the cusp of providing some really good value. But because I created it as single use, I never really gave it its full life to be seen again and again, to be expanded upon, to be part of an email, to be part of a live, to be part of some story slides, to be part of a blog. I never gave it that opportunity. So the ideas and the concepts that I was spending so much time putting together to post on social media essentially kind of fell flat. So let's not do that. We're not going to create single-use content anymore. I would suggest if you're ever going to do single-use content, that's going to be like an update on what you're doing in your life. You're on vacation. Maybe you want to share a quote from somebody. But anytime you're coming on to really point people in the direction of your product or your service, that content should be created with the intention that it will be seen and used more than just once. Because why shouldn't it be? It's amazing. You're a genius at what you do. Let people see it. The value in creating evergreen content, honestly, like these podcasts, this is the reason that I shifted all of my content creation to podcasting. All of the other content I create is like a trickle down effect of the podcast, but I knew I had to get really, really intentional if I wanted to show up with high value every single week and not burn myself out. How was I going to do that? I had to really think about it. And it's not like I knew it and was able to achieve it right away. It took a little bit of trial and error. Like I was still doing the podcast, I was still creating other posts, writing other emails, and I started recognizing the content that I'm sharing has a ton of value. And it is quite literally answering questions that I know my clients have, that I know my future clients have. Why am I not giving it a bigger platform to be seen? And so that's when I shifted everything. And now I spend about 3 hours a week recording a podcast episode and turning it into 10 plus pieces of content for that week. So when Monday hits of a new week, I am not creating content. For the entire week, I do not create content. And it is like been one of the best decisions I've made for my business because I just don't have time to do those extra things. So if you're feeling this way, understanding that your content has a lifespan and then giving it the opportunity to really fulfill that lifespan, it's such a game changer on how you show up and also how you expend your energy. So there's a couple different ways that you could create a lifespan for your content, right? Podcasting, like I've already said a couple times, great way of doing it. It's free. The service that I pay for, StreamYard, to record, I pay once a year for that. But every other aspect of how this podcast gets put together is free. And because I've been able to streamline it, it's not super, super time consuming anymore. Sending out emails. If you have a post that just goes bananas, you have so much engagement, it was really phenomenal, turn that shit into something else. Make multiple story slides out of it by simply copy and pasting the actual words into multiple story slides. You don't even have to use Canva to do this. You could literally just put text onto a color block of a story slide and let your message be seen. Because we all know that stories are consumed a little bit more than the feed. People consume obviously differently. Some people like to scroll, some people like to just watch the story highlights, and that's the only place they go, right? Some people go to Reels. So you have to kind of determine where's your audience hanging out. But if you have a piece of information that either had super great engagement and you know people need to see this message again and again and again, turn it into other things. Podcast, email, video, whether it's on YouTube or it's a live that you do. A resource could be a free resource, could be a paid resource, low ticket, high ticket, whatever your business is doing. It could be a blog. You can turn this information into all sorts of things. One of my clients, actually, she has excellent engagement with her social media content. She always has, but I've noticed that it's kind of even gotten better, which is great because we've dialed in so much of her business and it's become so consistent across the board that she gets this engagement. And so now what we've been doing is when we see a post like really pop off for her, we'll turn around and we make it into her monthly blog. We make it into an email that we send out to her subscribers, because all those people that are on her subscriber list, all the people that potentially are visiting her website and reading that blog, probably didn't see that post. So let's give it some life. Let's give it an opportunity to be seen. This is how you create a lifespan for your content. So I'll leave you with this. Pay attention to your surroundings. When you're having conversations with people, when you're driving around, when you're at the grocery store, pay attention. When you have these moments, these sparks of curiosity, tune into it and really ask yourself, how does what I'm witnessing right now relate to my business? Relate to the questions that my clients are always asking. How does this relate? Because if it's something that you became attuned to, right, your awareness was locked into it while you're out in the wild, out in the world, then that means that you're aligned with it, that you're aligned with the frequency of that thing. So pay attention. And this does take a little bit of a heightened sense of awareness. It is something to be practiced. It's okay if it's not something you naturally do. It's your reticular activator in your brain, essentially. You have to kind of turn it on to certain things, because it's one of those things, just like every other neuro pathway, you sort of get entrenched into these same patterns. If you're trying to change a pattern and become more aware about something, you have to actually get more intentional about that awareness and tell yourself, oh, look for this. Oh, I heard this. Oh, that means something. And so you really have to become aware of the alignment that you are feeling. Because when you don't put words to it, it's just sort of like a gut feeling. You're like, oh, that's like a intuition. It's, oh, my gut is telling me this is the right move to make. It's also your reticular activator going off saying, hey, You recognize this. This is something you've been asking to see. This is something you've been asking to experience. Here it is in front of you. So pay attention to the world around you. Ask yourself, how does this thing relate to what I'm doing and how I can help people? Approach from a place of curiosity. Look through the lens of learning. That was a quote inside of the Masterful Marketing book. The lens of learning. I'm like, that's so good. It's so simple, but it really is so true. When you look at life through a lens of learning, through a lens of curiosity, and you're just sort of, your mind goes from being this like cage of, okay, these are all the thoughts and the things, I'm protecting them inside my brain. Instead, you just sort of open it up and you're like, all right, let me see all the amazing shit that this world has to offer. And you have this curiosity and this drive to learn and then implement. Your business is going to fucking skyrocket. Like, that is the secret sauce for me in my business, at least, is having that curiosity, having that openness, and having that willingness to always be learning, always be hearing a problem, thinking about a solution, right? You never sit in the problem. You're always kind of moving through the problem and searching for a solution. Not every solution you find is going to be the fix, but you're never going to find the fix if you're never out there looking. Creating really high valuable content that has a fantastic lifespan will start to become second nature when you approach it from this kind of space. So I hope that you guys found this episode super helpful, because I know how amazing and how exhausting content creation can be. Reach out if you have any questions, and I'll see you in next week's episode. Bye. Thank you so much for listening to Branded, the podcast. Please rate and review, and for more information, visit socialjanemedia.com. I'll see you soon.